Chapter 17. The sun pierced through the clouds once again when the three of them left the house. Salangi, dressed in a coat of days gone by, walked slowly, her cane in one hand and the other clasped around Malou's forearm. Dan carried the book against his chest with both arms folded securely around it. Hiding behind one of the trees at the forest's edge, Damianos could not believe his eyes when he saw Salangi walk toward him in between Malou and Dan. Even though he had been distracted for an instant at the sight of the old lady, he hadn't missed seeing the book in Dan's arms. He smiled to himself and waited. "Wait here," Dan said to Malou and Salangi when they were nearing the edge of the meadow. "Damianos has probably been taking refuge in the forest during the storm. But don't give him the book before he comes out, Dan," Malou enjoined from behind him. "Trust me, I won't," he replied. "Besides, he can't touch it, remember?" Neither Malou nor Salangi gave him an answer. When the two women saw him disappear between the bushes and trees, Salangi said, "Maybe he won't show himself with me here." "Why wouldn't he?" Malou asked. Salangi threw her a smile. "Because, my dear, Damianos is a scaredy cat now, if you pardon the expression. I've given him such a hard time when he tried entering the house that I'm sure he's been scared of me ever since." "But didn't you say he tried to get in the house in human form?" "Oh yes, but since I knew it was my imagination playing tricks on me, I never let him pass the front door, if I ever opened it. By the way, I've not seen any pictures of your husband in the house. Why is that?" Malou asked. "Oh, that's because I didn't want to have his face staring at me when I knew I would be taken into imagining things again. You see, dear, I had to be careful of my every thought at first, otherwise I feared Damianos would play with my mind again. And since I am no longer the younger woman I once was, I didn't want to risk anything." Only a few yards into the forest, meanwhile, Dan was looking for Damianos. "Come on, you damn cat. Show yourself. I've got your book for you." He waited and took a few more steps ahead of him. Come out wherever you are. Come on, kitty cat. Where are you?" "Well, I don't think you'd ever come back," he heard Damianos say not too far from where he stood. "I know. You didn't think we would find your book, did you? And I'm very glad you did. But have you got the key?" "Aha, I thought you'd ask for it. But you see, Damianos," Dan went on when he saw a black cat round the tree behind which he had been hiding. "But what's this? No safari suit, no hunting vest. What's going on with you?" Dan looked down at Damianos. "It's Salangi," he replied. "I don't want her to see me in any other form." "Oh, don't give me that, you old liar. You've been showing up at her house on several occasions as a human being, so why not now?" "Well, let's just say I prefer not to frighten her at this point." "Oh no? And what about that lightning bolt that shot through the house? It almost killed her, you know. And don't tell me you had nothing to do with that, because once again, I won't believe you." "All right, I won't lie. But it wasn't entirely my fault either. You see, I didn't want you to open the book before seeing it, and for some reason I got my wish. Someone up there listened to my plea. Okay, as I said, I don't believe you. But be that as it may, we're here now, and unless you come out into the clearing, the book and the key will remain with Malou and me." "I hear you, Dan, but—" "No buts anymore, Damianos. Let's go," Dan said decisively, turning toward the clearing. "Hold on, Dan. A minute, please," Damianos insisted. "No, Damianos. All the explanations you want to give any of us will be heard by the three of us. We're prepared to open the book for you, but we want to be together when we do. Besides, you owe Salangi that much, don't you?" "Oh, and much more than you'll ever know," Damianos replied, taking a step behind Dan. And when Dan turned to see if the cat was following him, to his utmost surprise, Damianos had returned to being the old guy dressed in a safari suit that he and Malou had left sitting by the tree before going to Salangi's house. "Why? I thought you didn't want her to see you like that." "Well, let's just say it will be easier this way." "What will be easier?" Dan asked. "Never mind. Let's get on with it, okay?" Dan shrugged. That fickle cat. Who wants to know why he does what he does? He asked himself. The moment the two of them appeared at the edge of the forest, Salangi put a hand to her mouth. "Good God, Damianos, you all right?" "Why would you ask, dear woman?" Damianos replied, his eyes riveted on her. "I've been all right for many years, and why wouldn't I?" "No reason, really. But why are you dressed like that?" "Shush, woman," Damianos cut in. "We're not here to discuss my attire, now are we?" "Okay, you two," Dan said, smiling at the bantering. "Let's get that book of yours open, and then maybe we'll be able to end this nightmare." Dan was about to sit down on the grass when Damiano stopped him. Dan, I don't want Salangi to stay here. Why on earth not? Dan retorted. I thought we agreed that all of us... That's what you wanted, but I didn't agree to any such thing. Damiano snapped back. I don't want to risk her life when you open the book. So you know what's inside it, do you? Malou said, looking at the old man accusingly. I don't know anything of the sort, Malou. I can only guess from what's been happening to you and Dan and to Salangi that me and the pages of this book are not like any page of any book I've ever read. I thought it was a bad idea for me to leave the house, Salangi said, already turning away to walk back across the meadow. No, Salangi. Malou grabbed her by the arm. Please stay. If the book contains a way to deliver you from this nightmare, you need to stay. She peered into the old lady's eyes. What do you say, Damien? Nos. Malou and Dan exchanged a quick glance upon hearing Salangi call the old man Damien. What I say, my dear, is that it's your choice, but be prepared for evil to show you what you might not want to see. Come on, ladies, Dan cut in. Let's have a little get-together and see what this mysterious book has to tell us, okay? He looked up at the still hesitant Salangi. Come on, Salangi, Malou rejoined. Salangi shook her head, looked at Damianos briefly, and returned to stand beside Dan. All right then, Dan said, looking at Damianos first and then at Malou. May I have the key, please? Malou reached in her jacket pocket, withdrew the key from it, and handed it to Dan. When Dan inserted the key into the lock and turned it, everyone heard the click indicating the clasp would now be lifted and the book opened. Malou took a deep breath to calm the drumming of her heartbeat while Salangi put a trembling hand to her mouth, expectantly. Damianos, for his part, seemed to be waiting for anything, his stance obdurate. Passing a hand over the dream catcher that decorated the cover, Dan then lifted it. The moment he did, a whiff of cold air emanated from inside the book. Malou and Salangi shivered only for a fraction of a second before the ghostly figure of a young woman escaped the first page, then a man, then another woman, and another, until all of them hovered around and above Damianos' head in a circle of 12 vaporous human shapes, howling their resentment and anger toward him. Their words, although incoherent and incomprehensible to Malou, Dan and Salangi, seemed to deafen Damianos until he fell to his knees and put his hands to his ears. Go away, he shouted. You're free now, so please leave me in peace. Unable to contain her despair, Salangi rushed to him, screaming. He's done you no wrong. Leave him alone. Crouching in front of him. Dan and Malou were stunned. They had no idea what would happen next, and in a chorus of movement dropped the book opened on the grass at their feet and took off running into the forest. Yet when Dan suddenly realized that without Damianos they would never be able to go back to the drugstore, he came to a dead stop. Hold on, Malou. We can't run, he uttered, panting. You're right. We've got to get Damianos back, Malou agreed. At those words, and as they were about to turn around, they noticed some of the figures floating about the trees, as if they were preys, hiding from some invisible hunter. Their howling became fierce and more daunting by the moment until they heard a coherent sentence pronounced by one of them. You can't leave. Death awaits you. Both instinctively touching their dream catchers, Dan hollered, Only death will touch those who do not repent. Redemption is what awaits all of us. Malou stared at her husband curiously. She'd never heard him speak like that. What are you saying? She asked, stepping in front of him to peer into his eyes. That's what the book is all about, Malou. These people, all 12 of them, have been held captive because they couldn't redeem themselves for what they had done during their lifetime. How do you know this? It's the words that are written in the book, Malou, Dan replied, taking her hand and turning her back toward the meadow. We've got to read the last pages of that book. But we've got... Shush, Malou, Dan said with the determination of someone on a sacred mission of some kind. Let's get Damianos to tell us who or what forced him to engage and condemn these people to damnation. Do you think he knows? I'm sure he knows something. No one could be that powerful and demonic without knowledge. While the two of them made their way back to the meadow in silence, the haunting sounds of the 12 ghosts followed their every step, ranting words escaping in between the deafening noise. When they finally reached the edge of the forest, an astounding scene awaited them. Salangi was nestled in the arms of a man they had never seen before, Damien. He was tall, with blonde wavy hair crowning a gentle and clean-shaven face. His handsome stature towered somewhat over that of Salangi, who had now regained the youth that Malou and Dan thought had abandoned her years ago. They both smiled at the incredulous couple. "Where is Damianos?" were Malou's first words when she and Dan emerged onto the clearing. His work is not done, as you know, Damien replied. His voice was modulated and controlled, such as that of a wise man, and he will be back for you both. In his world, a promise cannot be broken. Even using lies and deception to attain his goal, Damianos has to tame the spirits in his charge. What about the book? Where is it? Dan asked, somewhat ignoring Damien's comments. Here, Salangi replied, extending both hands to give it to Dan. We knew you needed to come back to read the last pages. How did you know? Malou asked. Because, my dear, redemption can only be attained by executing 12 Herculean tasks, which are described in the last pages of that book. Salangi looked up at her husband. And where do you come from? Dan asked, addressing Damien. You're supposed to be dead of a frightful disease. And so am I, Dan, Salangi interposed. Remember, everything you've been through is only in your imagination. This is not a dream catcher can catch, but a picture that a dream maker can create into reality. Once you've read the last pages of the book, you will understand the difference, and then it's up to you both to choose the path you want to take, Damien added. What about returning to Pahokee? Malou asked. She thought this whole thing was becoming a little more intricate and a little too daunting for her. We only want to go home. And you will, my dear, you will, Salangi said. It's only a matter of time. Yes, and time was running out when we came to your house. Oh no, Dan, that's where you're wrong. Time stood still the minute you passed through the threshold of that old house, Damien said, throwing a glance in the direction of the decrepit mansion on top of the hill. But what about those 12 tasks that you mentioned, Salangi? And what sort of redemption are you talking about? Salangi shook her head. I'm sorry, dear, if I wasn't clear. You remember when we talked about Hercules having to accomplish 12 redeeming tasks? Yes, but if Dan and I have done nothing wrong, why do we need redemption? Did Hercules need redemption? Damien asked. Not per se, no, Malou replied. He had to prove himself worthy in the eyes of the gods. Precisely, Damien said. So you have already proven worthy in the eyes of the Almighty by finding and opening the book, wouldn't you say?